The Everglades has always been a place of beauty and danger. At sunrise, the sky glows orange over endless sawgrass marshes. Cypress trees rise from the water like ancient guardians. The air hums with insects, and in the stillness, predators lurk unseen. For visitors, the Everglades is a wonder. But for those who venture too far, it can become a trap, a place where the wild takes back what is its own. On a warm Florida morning in the summer of 2005, a young mother and her infant son set out for what should have been a simple walk. She parked her car near a muddy trail, strapped her baby close, and disappeared into the swamp. By nightfall, when she hadn't returned, alarm bells began to ring. By morning, her family's fears had turned into panic. And soon, the Everglades held one of the darkest mysteries in its history. Her name was Jessica Parker. She was 27 years old, a single mom raising her 6-month-old son, Noah. She wasn't reckless, and she wasn't naive. But on that day, she stepped into a wilderness that has no mercy. And for a year, her fate and the fate of her baby would remain unknown, until a shocking discovery stunned the world. A massive python was captured in the Everglades, its belly grotesquely swollen with a strange bulge. And when investigators opened it, they uncovered a truth too horrifying to imagine. This is the story of Jessica Parker and her son Noah, a story of love, loss, and the unforgiving power of the wild. Jessica Parker grew up in a modest Florida town, not far from Miami's edge where suburbia gives way to swamp. Friends remembered her as caring, determined, and full of warmth. Life hadn't been easy. She worked long hours at a diner while juggling college classes, and when Noah was born, she took on the role of both mother and father. Her family said Jessica loved the outdoors. She often drove out to the Everglades to hike short trails or sit by the water, watching birds soar across the horizon. To her, it was an escape, a place where stress melted away, where she could imagine a simpler life. But that peaceful escape would one day become her grave. On the morning she vanished, Jessica told her sister she planned to take Noah for a quick walk in the park. Just a little fresh air, she said. She loaded Noah into the car, brought a small bag with snacks and baby supplies, and drove out to Everglades National Park. When she didn't return by evening, her family grew anxious. By nightfall, they were calling the police. Hours later, rangers found Jessica's car parked at a lonely trailhead, the doors locked, her phone inside. But there was no sign of her or Noah. The Everglades search was one of the largest in recent years. Rangers, deputies, and volunteers poured into the swamp. Helicopters scanned from above, their searchlights cutting across the sawgrass. Airboats skimmed the water channels, while dog teams tracked along muddy trails. For days, the park echoed with voices calling Jessica's name. But there were no footprints, no torn clothing, no stroller, no baby blanket. It was as if mother and child had simply dissolved into the swamp. Rescuers battled brutal conditions. The summer heat was suffocating, with temperatures soaring past 95 degrees. Mosquitoes swarmed in clouds. Gators lurked in shallow pools. Every step in the muck carried the risk of sinking deeper. Searchers pushed themselves to exhaustion, but the Everglades gave nothing back. Jessica's family clung to hope. They believed she had gotten lost, that she and Noah were still out there somewhere, waiting to be found. But as days turned into weeks, hope turned to despair. Authorities considered every possibility. Could she have fallen into deep water, pulled under by an alligator? Could she have collapsed from heat stroke, too deep in the swamp for rescuers to reach in time? Or was there something darker? Theories swirled like the Everglades morning mist. Some insisted the swamp itself had claimed them. The gators got her, locals whispered. To those who lived near the Everglades, it was a grim but common explanation. Others believed Jessica and Noah had crossed paths with human predators. The Everglades has long been a haven for smugglers, poachers, and drifters. Rangers know that deep inside the swamp are places where people hide, drug stashes, illegal camps, even fugitives avoiding the law. Could Jessica have stumbled onto something she wasn't meant to see? A third theory was more haunting, that Jessica had chosen to vanish, that the pressures of life as a single mother had driven her to disappear, taking Noah with her into the wilderness. but her family rejected that outright. Jessica loved Noah more than anything, her sister Michelle said. She'd never hurt him, never leave us like that. Despite the rumors, the official record remained frustratingly empty. With no evidence, detectives kept the file open. But as weeks became months, the Parker case became another cold mystery stacked in the sheriff's office. For Jessica's family, the pain was unbearable. They had no grave to visit, no answers to ease their nightmares. Every time the phone rang, they hoped it was news. Every time a body was found in Florida, their hearts stopped. But none of those calls ever brought closure. The Everglades is not just a swamp, it's a labyrinth, covering more than 1 million acres. It's a place where you can get lost within minutes. Sawgrass fields stretch endlessly, broken only by clusters of cypress and mangroves. Beneath the water, alligators and snakes glide silently. On land, venomous cottonmouths curl beneath logs. The deeper you go, the more unforgiving it becomes. Searchers who joined the hunt for Jessica admitted later they had been terrified, not of finding her, but of what else might find them. Stories circulate among rangers, campers who vanish, hunters who never return, boats found adrift with no passengers. The swamp has a way of keeping secrets. Jessica and Noah's disappearance quickly became one of those secrets. By the end of the year, the family had little choice but to accept what seemed inevitable. The Everglades had claimed 2 more lives. But no one could have predicted what would happen nearly 1 year later. In the summer of 2006, python hunters tracking invasive snakes stumbled upon a monster. Its belly bulged grotesquely, stretched by something far larger than any rabbit, raccoon, or deer. The sight alone was unsettling. But when investigators opened the snake, they uncovered a truth that horrified even seasoned wildlife officers. What lay inside the python would finally reveal Jessica and Noah's fate. Nearly a year had passed since Jessica Parker and her baby Noah disappeared into the Everglades. By now, most of the world had moved on. Other cases filled the headlines, and other tragedies consumed the news. But for Jessica's family, the nightmare never ended. Every empty crib, every unopened box of baby clothes, every photo of Jessica holding Noah kept their grief raw. Then, on a blistering July afternoon in 2006, the swamp gave up one of its darkest secrets. A licensed team of python hunters had been working the backcountry, searching for the invasive Burmese pythons that had been wreaking havoc on the Everglades ecosystem. These snakes, often released by exotic pet owners decades earlier, had flourished beyond anyone's imagination. Growing over 15 feet long and weighing more than 150 pounds, they were apex predators capable of swallowing deer, alligators, and anything else unlucky enough to cross their path. That day, the hunters spotted movement in the sawgrass. A massive python slithered slowly, its body thick as a man's torso. But what caught their eyes was the grotesque bulge in its midsection. It was far larger, far stranger than anything they had ever seen before. They captured the snake after a tense, muddy struggle. Its coils thrashed, its mouth gaped wide, but eventually the hunters secured it. Still, their victory was overshadowed by dread. Everyone present knew there was something inside that snake, something that didn't belong. The python was transported to a secure facility where wildlife experts and law enforcement gathered. The atmosphere was heavy. Cameras rolled. Reporters whispered. Rangers stood in grim silence. When the moment came, a wildlife officer made the first incision along the python's swollen belly. The smell was overwhelming, a sickly mixture of decay and swamp. Slowly, carefully, the team pulled apart the layers. And then they froze. Inside were the unmistakable remains of a woman and a small child. Gasps filled the room. Some turned away. Even hardened investigators admitted later they had never seen anything like it. The bodies, though badly decomposed, were intact enough to confirm the unthinkable. Jessica Parker and her 6-month-old son Noah had been swallowed whole by the python. For a year, the Everglades had kept their fate hidden. Now, the python had revealed it in the most horrific way imaginable. Forensic specialists worked carefully to confirm identities. Dental records and DNA left no doubt. It was Jessica and Noah. Forensic entomologists and wildlife experts pieced together what had likely happened. Pythons are ambush predators. They strike with lightning speed, coiling around their prey and suffocating it before swallowing it whole. Unlike alligators, which leave behind evidence of violent struggle, pythons leave almost nothing. Once consumed, a victim vanishes inside the snake, hidden from the outside world. Investigators believe Jessica may have become lost and disoriented during her hike. Exhausted and carrying her baby, she could have stumbled into the python's path. In a matter of minutes, the snake struck. Alone, far from help, Jessica and Noah stood no chance. The horror of this explanation sent shockwaves far beyond Florida. Though pythons had long been known to consume deer, raccoons, and even alligators, this was one of the first documented cases of humans falling victim in the United States. It turned the Parker case from a local mystery into an international headline. For Jessica's family, the discovery was both closure and cruelty. After a year of agony, they finally had answers. But the answers only deepened their pain. "We always prayed they would be found alive," Jessica's sister Michelle said tearfully. "To know what really happened, it's worse than anything we imagined." The news rippled through Florida communities. Parents who once hiked the Everglades with their children vowed never to return. Tourists canceled trips. Headlines warned of monster pythons in the Everglades. For many, the idea that a snake could swallow a woman and her baby was too horrifying to comprehend. Wildlife officials urged calm, pointing out that python attacks on humans were exceedingly rare. But fear had already taken hold. The Parker case had transformed an ecological problem into a human nightmare. The tragedy reignited debate over the python invasion in Florida. Introduced decades earlier through the exotic pet trade, Burmese pythons had multiplied out of control. With known natural predators in the Everglades, they spread rapidly, decimating native wildlife. Studies showed dramatic declines in rabbits, raccoons, and deer populations. Alligators, once kings of the swamp, were now prey. Now, after Jessica and Noah's deaths, the public demanded action. Calls for stricter regulation of exotic pets grew louder. Python hunts were expanded. Research funding increased to understand and control the species. But the Everglades is vast, more than 1 million acres of swamp, marsh, and forest. For every python captured, many more lurked unseen. The Parker case became a symbol of the risks posed not only by the wilderness itself, but by the human choices that had unleashed invasive predators into it. The Everglades had always been a place of whispered dangers. Stories of missing hunters, vanished hikers, and boats found adrift without passengers circulated for decades. But the Parker tragedy gave those fears a terrifying focus. For many Floridians, the Everglades no longer represented adventure. It represented risk. The line between beauty and danger was thinner than ever. The swamp silence was no longer peaceful, it was menacing. As investigators closed the file on Jessica and Noah Parker, the community was left to grapple with the meaning of their deaths. Some saw it as a warning about the dangers of venturing too far into the wild. Others pointed to it as a symbol of how human interference, releasing exotic pets into fragile ecosystems, can create horrors no one anticipated. For Jessica's family, the meaning didn't matter. They had lost a daughter, a sister, a mother, a child. No explanation could ease that pain. And yet, their story remains a haunting reminder. The Everglades is not a park in the human sense. It is a wilderness governed by its own rules. In that wilderness, even the strongest can vanish, and even the smallest can fall prey to monsters hiding in the reeds. Today, Jessica's car no longer sits at the trailhead. The case file is marked closed, but the Everglades remain vast and silent. Tourists still arrive, snapping photos of herons and lilies. Rangers still guide airboats through the sawgrass. And deep in the swamp, pythons still slither, unseen and unstoppable. The story of Jessica and Noah Parker is not just a tragedy. It is a warning. Respect the wild. Fear what lurks beneath its surface. And remember that sometimes, when people vanish, the truth waits inside the belly of the swamp. If this story moved you, Share it with others who follow true crime mysteries. Leave your thoughts and theories in the comments below. Could tragedies like this be prevented? And should the Everglades be feared more than it is loved? Make sure to subscribe to this channel for more cinematic true crime stories, where silence hides the darkest truths and every mystery has a voice.